Now, Chris ended up sending another busky-ass letter from jail. The thing with this one is it's a lot longer than most of the rest. This is like 6 fucking pages. This got dropped a couple days ago. I was planning on making a video on it, but let me tell you something, man. Mexican Wi-Fi is dog shit. Nonetheless, it's nothing compared to the absolute amount of shit we're about to dive into here in Chris's 6th letter. So, let's get started. To blank. I had received your letter earlier today and have just read through it over a couple of sandwiches. I write this now with continued sound, mind, and body and soul on this partial sheet torn from the photocopy of the letter's envelope while the response is fresh. Short on full blank paper and envelopes at this moment. I will write more in a couple of days after receiving more paper and envelopes. Now, this letter, even though it just came out like more recently, this was sent on October 20th, whereas more of my recent letters I've read were sent on October 25th. So I think those letters Chris is talking about were already sent. Now, for genuine, on the level, and down-to-earth preface directly with you, Elisa. Okay, so they scratched out the name on top, but I think Chris just gave their name away anyway, and the person forgot to scratch it out. I do meditate, innately, consciously, and involuntarily, and constantly, and have all my life. Chris has had a lot of problems doing things involuntarily in his life. So I do have direct access to and with this earth. Both of our earths, of the recombining universe, the entire multiverse, the Akashic records, and all other greater and ultimate knowledge, insights, and wisdoms. Every letter I read of Chris, he has some new fucking thing. Is the Akashic records, like, I don't remember that now. That's just part of Chris's whole lore. So I do not just believe, I know, full and only speak true and fact, as aside from some future spoilers, details not yet to be publicly revealed that I am not allowed to divulge. I personally have nothing or very little to hide. So I think what Chris is saying there is, I know you guys want proof of me being God, but sorry, I can't give it. Then again, why am I even questioning it? God's all-knowing. That being stated, I shall initially open by answering your 6th and 4th questions, since the two are sharing in similar details. I mean, that's understandable. Why start with their 6th and 4th? How many did they send you? In regards to the online fame or infamy, yes, I do realize and have accepted that a certain extent of the damage and chaos that had come upon myself on this earth was in fact my fault and bad in sharing too much conscious honesty during those respective years in performance to what had been present then. Okay, hold up. Consciously naive, ADD, OCD, tunnel vision, in reference to and on top of my innate meditations, my brain was still a work in progress with a cacophony of many details. Stop using words like that, Chris. And what was right in front of my body and happening took a lot of attention from me. Okay, so right here, right this little part right here, Chris, it's one of these rare fucking moments where Chris is taking a bit of accountability, but I guarantee you, as we read on, all that shit's gonna go out the window and he's just gonna forget all about it and continue to talk about fucking being Jesus and shit. He just talks about being quote-unquote consciously naive. And he's saying this is something he's understanding about himself when that could be further from the truth because he thinks he's fucking Jesus. And another thing Chris says there that kind of jumped out to me was him saying, I've shared too much conscious honesty during these respective years. And if you know anything about Chris, you know that he's one of the most dishonest fuckers in the world because you can't trust a goddamn thing he says. Chris is a compulsive liar. When Chris says honesty, I don't think he means being honest with people. I don't think he means telling the truth. I think what Chris means is when he thinks of honesty, he means out of nowhere to tell someone that he shit his pants today. Because it's the truth. It's honest. But at the same time, when it came to crunch time, when people would ask him questions, Chris never had a good answer and he would always beat around it and lie. Chris's whole perception on honesty is really fucking different than other people's. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you have followed Chris, you will know what I'm talking about. I assume so. If you don't, leave a comment down below and be like, man, you're fucking stoned. What are you talking about? But let's continue. I was simply still soul-searching, exploring, and in remaining in observation and testing of others in mindset up until about 2011 or 2014, and I did not like to lie, so honest and benefiting of the doubt I was. What the fuck does that even mean? I know my faults. No, you don't. I am certainly no Mary Sue. Yes, you are. And that case was the same of me in Israel over 2,000 years ago. Even if I had not divulged so many truth bombs and honesty encounter in late 2007 and early 2008, the results in massively being chronicled and famous would still have transpired anyway, as had my followers started following me in my past life as well. Okay, I want to go back to that. The partial lack of focus on the books is found in what I had stated above. I know I am better than some to most, but I still have room for some self-improvement. And then he signs his long, drawn-out fucking name. First off, Chris's whole thing on the followers I gained then are kind of like the followers I gained with Jesus. Chris is still kind of in denial after all these years that he never did have fans. There was never like a Sonichu fan like who was like, oh man, I can't wait for the next enthralling issue of the story of Sonichu. Chris is one of these people like any other locale who we laughed at them, not necessarily with them. And for most locales, they get that, but Chris is incapable of understanding that. Now, I wanted to talk about that, but something else caught my eye, and that completely went out the window. That last line there. I know I am better than some to most, but I still have room for self-improvement. Who the fuck thinks Chris Chan is better than, like... Once again, this is his ego just talking, like thinking, oh man, you know, a lot of people out there, my fans, they still think I'm one of the good guys. Like, there ain't one fucking person walking around here who still thinks Chris is the good guy after what he did. I don't think anyone thought Chris was the good guy ever. It was just Chris who would say that. I remember him, I think it was a video with Nintendo where he thought he was like, where someone made like a fake Miyamoto or maybe the fake Reggie that was Clyde Cash, where Chris says, I'm not the villain, the trolls are the villains. Well, Chris, from outside looking in, you've always kind of looked like the villain. You know, and that I know I am better than some to most line. I just, wow. And I know I have some room for self-improvement, says the man in jail right now for fucking his mother. Well, we'll see how much Chris can improve. And oh, you thought that shit was it? Ladies and gentlemen, we got 6 more motherfucking pages and a brand new letter. I don't really know the context behind this one. There's a lot crossed out, and I don't really like that. You're going to see it as I scroll down here, but I really don't like these letters where like a big chunk of it is taken away from by the person who wrote it. Now, granted, maybe Chris divulged some personal information and you don't want to write that, but sorry, if you're willing to write Chris and put it on the Kiwi Farms, maybe don't be such a pussy and take out parts of the letter that, like, you clearly want to get clout or something from this, so, like, don't withhold information if you're going to give out information, just putting that out there. Dear blank, as I have written a couple of days ago when I had received and read your letter, and now better able to answer the remaining questions with this letter pad at my use, I now resume with continued sound mind and body and soul and focus. I also reaffirm with a hand over my heart as I write this sentence with my full and extensive access to all greater and ultimate knowledge, insights, and wisdoms for my strong connections with the cosmos, universe, Akashic records, there's that fucking word again. What is that? And the entire of and beyond the multiverse. I speak to you both true and fact and direct and on the level. I don't know what those last, like on the level and all means, but none of that's true. Chris is not about to speak true, not about to speak facts. And let's go down below a little bit to this part that's crossed out. So yeah, the second paragraph of this whole fucking letter is just completely crossed out, and you have a picture of Chris's peace-giving Sonichu right there. Whatever, let's just move on. Now I've already answered the fourth and sixth questions in the enclosed note, which were in regard to lack of focus on the books, about my self-awareness of my faults, and so forth. The dimension merge, collective shift, and my second coming, while visually you may or may not have witnessed obvious incoming or outgoing presences, physical, they have happened and are happening as we speak right now. I'll spare the greater metaphysical truths and details, but suffice to state, there still remains a lingering veil that continues to be very tough to remove by great force prematurely. Its removal is set in divine timing to be removed upon the completion of my second coming as detailed in the Bible's Malachi chapters 3 and 4. The merge itself is completed between universes 12-18, we know that, but it is one of the big three events, and it can't be concluded until after the completion of all three. The collective shift is the second and present event in progress. Second coming is the third. Not to avoid the hypothetical question, just offering the context at present. This is sounding more like a fucking video game quest with every time he describes it. It's gonna, once Chris probably gets out of jail, when that happens, this is gonna turn from Jesus shit right back to video game shit probably. Now, hypothetically, for the merge not to ever go through in the greater conclusion is also to have the second coming never to happen. In that, there would not be a what would I do, because I would have never existed during these modern years from 1982 to present. And in lack of my existence, you both and everyone else would have never existed now either. I encourage you both to deeply meditate and consult with the cosmos for yourselves. I don't know if Chris is talking about some stellar intergalactic shit when it comes to cosmos, or if he's really into the gay scene and just loved having a Cosmo at the bar. Or ask any authentic or highly educated psychic or medium for the deeper details. But to put it in shorter terms, any high educated person at all, or a medium or a psychic, would tell you that Chris is out of his fucking mind. Since my birth in Bethlehem in year 0, and after my obvious and physical ascension to the heaven realm, I had returned to Earth with my physical appearance changed and assuming a new identity with continued immortal memories and so forth. I've continued to walk with everyone for centuries on continued guidance, observations, and divine missions, and I change myself time and time again, even to internally and eternally changing my physical gender as well. Come the year 1689, and King Arthur commanded Merlin to exile all dragons. What? Now we're getting into mythology? Fucking dragons and shit? Chris's new world might be pretty sick. We might have Peter Griffin posted up with Eric Cartman riding a fucking dragon. That's a world I want to live in. From which ended up dividing the universe, putting me exiled from the non-magicable peoples, as well as for a brief moment for me, but centuries for you all. My sudden mind, body, and soul interdimensional transport forward and back through time and space, landing me in my one reincarnation and rebirth on February 24th, 1982. My father, now mother, Emmanuel, God above gods, the fuck, herself, had been answering everyone's prayers and projecting my outdated visage in my steed from 1389 with my temporary exile to 2000 when I came of age once again and started astral projecting, manifesting, and working with everyone over again, or once again. I think a really big important thing here is if Chris lived from year 0 to 1389, he was never able to get any China between then and then. That's probably why he's so fucking grumpy. Because it's not just Chris was on a 10-year love quest. Chris seems to be on a 1400-year love quest, and no pussy has been thrown his way since. My exile in 1389 was my real leave from you all, and this life I live immortally is now the foreshadowing. along with my reawakening, obviously, come on, how do we not know that? Of the foretold second coming of mine. So, hypothetically, if there was no dimensional merge, there is no second coming, and without the second coming, I and all of you would not exist at all now. So, what would I be doing? Same as you. Not exist. Chris's backstory and lore is getting deeper and deeper with every fucking letter. Moving on, my past and present views on those with mental illnesses similar to what I had been born in this life with. This is not more personally existential in detail. Presently, I actually do not look down on anyone with autism, ADD, ADHD, OCD, and so forth. I have become more conscious and aware and more appreciative of all those who overcome these struggles and even harder struggles. I have other autistic friends, Anna McLaren for one. My trigger had been in observing and deep empathy and mirroring of those who cannot extensively function mentally. You know, this is one of those things that I always come across in these letters, and it's sad hearing Chris say this, because he's said it for years now that he's defeated autism, he's overcome autism, and like, it's just one of these ego things with Chris, where like, he has no reasoning for why he's done this, and will completely resort to going right back to just showing his true colors, but he'll swear up and down that he's beaten autism, and he's overcome it, and even saying now that he doesn't look down on anyone with autism anymore. Because the motherfucker's ego was so high that he looked at everyone else with autism as below him even when he knew he had it. If Chris really was God, it'd be a fucked up world, because God would only care about himself. I have always felt really sorry for them, but direct that question to yourself. What if, in this timeline, you were as mentally incapable as that kid in a wheelchair with the constantly tilted head and arched wrists? Or that constantly unconscious and mumbling young adult who greets everyone with a tough as 100-pound whaps? What the fuck? 100-pound, I don't know, whaps to their shoulder on head and can't help it. To me, putting myself in their plight empathetically is a trigger. To be fair, Chris, that second person you just described is yourself to a T about 10 years ago, and still probably to today. But I also do appreciate that some of them as well manage to succeed in their individual way. I can agree with Chris on that one. We can all hope to see people with mental illnesses and physical ailments, any disability, succeed. Anyone can. I can get with that, Chris. 100%, brother. Stephen Hawking, to name an obvious one. I also know that they do think and feel for themselves, but they can't fully express it or speak it clearly. I feel it most difficult and enduring, patient as I am. Well, you better get your patience, you better get used to it, Chris, because you're going to be in that fucking jail cell for a pretty goddamn long time. To be in their company for too long, because then my mind copies them, and I'm left in a state of mind for a while. Just no good. I do not look down nor hate the similar or worse mentally challenged. I have a hard time with the worse mentally challenged. Be my mirror and reflect my plight while I mirror. Timmy of South Park. I'm not laughing either. I don't know what Chris is going with that, but like I said, he keeps talking about how he doesn't hate the other mentally challenged, but then keeps going back to like saying that he has a hard time with the worse of mentally challenged because he sees a lot of himself in them. And which is indicative of a completely bigger issue that Chris is having here, because he wants so desperately to be seen as normal, but he can't, because he has so many like mental issues. But Chris is still smart enough to see that he has these issues and see that people are worse than him, but he can't fix himself. And that is what I think's got to be the hardest thing of all for Chris. I feel better, including everyone, especially when they continue to project positive vibes and emotions, as well as treating others kindly, compassionately, and respectfully, as they treat themselves and their family and partners. I will not argue or dispute communities appreciating each other in a similar interest, attribute, or even flaw. I have not repeated the acronym with straight/cisgender in the main letters in years, and I was still in a learning place then. Socially, I like being inclusive and open-minded, simple as that. You know, honestly, I will say this, as while we can all admit that Chris is a fucking rambling madman, Chris has had some, like, little anecdotes of wisdom here and there in this letter that makes me think this is, like, the most genuine, down-to-earth Chris letter without all of his fucking delusions. Like, it's crazy that I'm saying that in the same letter that he's talking about, being Jesus, being around since 1398. But there is some message to take here from Chris, which is rare. And Chris doesn't know the message he's giving, but it's just being inclusive, being open-minded and all that. It's a good message, It's just maybe Chris isn't the right guy to give it. Not everything falls back on me being autistic, but when it did, it was an impulsive and flawed form of self-defense because I was really heavily emotional during those times. Once again, though, Chris, this goes back to Chris is doing the same thing he did back when people would call him on that. Be like, Chris, why are you falling back on your autism as a crutch? It just happens. It just happens. I get very emotional. So, still, Chris hasn't changed. He's always going to put his emotions and try to use them as the excuse. I love how he says there, I didn't use autism I used it as an impulsive and flawed form of self-defense, but then goes on to use his emotions as another form of self-defense. A related topic, my dad, Robert Franklin Chandler Jr., or Robert Chew. Oh, he did add Sonichu at the end. Robert Franklin Jr. Sonichu. Throughout my life, used to constantly spar to instigate an argument or trigger me, as if as a child, just saying and partly ranting, going to wake up Robert Chew. He did call him Robert Chew, awesome. And Barbara, and seeing his pantless boxer, shortless exposed penis on display like a statue in a museum was not traumatizing enough at the time. What? How the fuck didn't that traumatize you, Chris? That reminds me, do you guys remember the old Dane Cook skit? I don't remember which it was, but I just vaguely remember a fucking Dane Cook stand-up thing where he's talking about accidentally seeing his dad's junk. And that just reminded me of that when I read Chris's shit. Taking fucking 6 double takes like Chris. What? Oh my, what? I can't stop looking at it. Oh shit. Yeah, Chris, if you weren't traumatized by it enough at the time, I don't know what to tell you, because any normal kid would be traumatized as fuck about that. Often, I hardly ever was able to easily counter or respond to his attempts at encouraging me to verbally argue or defend myself. That's because, Chris, you never had a good counter or anything to anybody. On that aspect, I can fall back and blame the freaking autism as it was then, as it still is now, Chris. Christ. But yeah, I did not verbally argue as much growing up, and it took facing the even tougher moments since 2000 and shit for me to actually formulate and speak better self-defenses for what is truth, even in those times when the result was actually my damn fault, especially with all of the truth bombs and Rosie Rose Chew's post-intersex to female transition and operation, nudes in the XXX tended controversial version of my book number 8 in 2008, fucking Encyclopedia Dramatica, and toxic haters. Hell yes, I am upset. Didn't in one of those issues Chris draw a 14-year-old that said the dumb laws would keep her from doing naked photo shoots? Chris, everything people have shit on you for was justified. Shut the fuck up. I can hear him screaming in this letter. I just want to write him back and be like, stop. Everything that you fucking did brought you all that bullshit, Chris. Fucking stop. I tested everyone as I was meant to on divine missions from Emmanuel, and I got betrayed, kissed again by Josh Moon as I did by Jesus. Oh, when Chris gets out, him and Ethan Ralph are going to team up and have a field day going against fucking Null. They'll just both go back and forth about why they hate Null, and not really, to be fair, when it comes to both of them, neither of them have a genuine reason. What do you expect Null to do, Chris? Just bend to your every will? Come on, man. Deep breaths. Chris had to write out his breaths and sighing. I apologize for that outburst, but I also feel it empathizes my point in response to your 5th question. I do take responsibility for slipping into the Emotional outburst. Also, I never said Barbara was a god. You said she was Emmanuel. But Emmanuel is my mother, as she was my father long ago. So Chris fucked his mom and dad? Oh, Bob is not going to be happy about this. Emmanuel and Barbara are two separate individuals and souls. And I am living in the now. I have been. I don't know what that means, you friggin' weirdo. I know who and what I am, was and always have been, and one moment at a time in this body of mine, and actually or astrally manifested between both Earths of 1218 here and that of 1C211987. Thank you, blank, for your questions. You have my consent and permission to share these truthful responses online, if you and blank feel well enough and wish to do so. And then a bunch more shit is crossed out, which once again, I don't like that you did that. If you're going to post this online, you might as well post everything on it. I personally bless you both through this letter and directly from my soul. Go forth in peace and clarity by my power and glory as God. And then he signs his long fucking name. So, some takeaways. I got about 3. The first one's the obvious one, and that's that once again, Chris is still just festering in his own fucking wasteful mind and thinking he's fucking Christ. Like, it's ridiculous that it's gotten this far, but it's going to keep getting worse, and I really can't wait until November 18th, where it's the next possible date for the hearing, and to see if Chris tries some shit like this in the courtroom, because knowing how he's acting right now, I think he damn well might. One of the greatest lines from this was on the first or second page when he says, I know people think a lot of me, or whatever the fuck he said, which, what a gem that was for Chris, someone who's in jail right now for doing what he did, and he still thinks like there's a big majority of people out there that's rooting for him right now. Maybe like 4 or 5 people really want to see Chris like get out of jail and all this stuff, but I genuinely think Chris is a fucking danger, especially if he thinks like this. He's not going to change at all because he clearly hasn't realized he's done anything wrong. These letters aren't him saying like, man, I apologize for what I did. I was so wrong for this. Like, he's just talking about, you know, I'm God, Barbara's Emmanuel. In other letters, he's talked about how what he did was to help Barbara age and shit. And in this letter, it's seems like more of a defense for himself. Like, he kept going over the old autism thing, saying, you know, how he's recovered from it and he doesn't look down upon other people with autism, but then proceeds to say how he doesn't want to be around them because he sees himself in them. It's just Chris. It's classic Chris. And I don't really know what anyone expected these letters, what else for them to be. It's just a bunch of Chris bullshit. And, man, I think we're getting to the point where Chris is going to start dropping some more truth bombs on us. He said he dropped a lot of honesty here, but I don't necessarily know about that. Other than that, I'm still on vacation for a few days. When I get back, hopefully the videos will be pumping out a little bit more. But ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a great day. And spark the fat blunt for me, and have a good one. Be safe, y'all.